All right, so by the end of this, we have this dictionary of views and channel IDs. So we can end the loop here. And then the final, so this frame is still continuing because we didn't finish it. So this is the frame of the find popular topic. This was the frame of the find video stats that has the accumulation functionality there. All right, so we have the dictionary with channel ID and accumulated views, right? Now we just need to have the call for the get channel name to replace the channel ID by a name. Okay. So that can also happen in a loop, or also needs to happen in a loop because we have a dictionary of channel IDs. So we're gonna need another loop. Let me just reduce this a little bit. That's also the outer loop still continuing. All this is happening inside the outer loop, and all this is happening inside this frame. Also, a possible choice, just like I did the dictionary, I'm gonna say that we need to create a list. So let's say I'm gonna create a list. Now see, Visio doesn't have this create message. So I'm just gonna use a regular search message. All right. Now, as we are going to replace the channel ID with a channel name, then we have everything needed to create the trend setter object, right? All right. So I'm gonna inside this loop, I'm gonna replace the channel ID. So I'm gonna call the find channel name. And we send it the channel ID. And then inside of it, we're gonna need to create a request and do all the steps that is needed to connect to the YouTube, the YouTube channel, the YouTube data API. Okay, based on what comes out of the execution of the request, I'm going to create. So after we get the name, we can create an object of trend setter. Okay, so that gives me a. So here I'm gonna create an object of trend setter, and I'm gonna send the channel name and so create, and I'm gonna send it the channel ID, a channel name, and views as the popularity score. Okay, so now I use the word create to indicate the constructor. So it doesn't matter, like it doesn't mean I have to have a function called create. It just means I'm calling the constructor. Yes. Why is it in the loop? Because for every pair of channel name and view, we're gonna create one object of trendsetters. So you see here, if you remember yesterday, we have a class called trendsetter that for each one. And then we create a list So every time there's a channel, it has one object for it. Okay? Every time, every author is an object of the trendsetter. Okay? And then I'm just not very accurately. Now we see attempts are like I found people try to be very accurate with a diagram, they get frustrated and they leave it altogether. So this is a language, just like everyday language. We try to communicate something. Whatever communicates it, use it. Okay. Now we try to use a consistent language as possible, but it's the fact that it is a new kind of language and the uncertainty is there. We're gonna need to be flexible. So as long as if I say, okay, add this trendsetter to the list, and I know that my team are going to understand what I'm saying by that, then that should be fine. Okay. So that would be, yes. So what? Because the trendsetter doesn't add itself, right? Someone needs to add it. So usually we say append and then you send the trendsetter. Okay. I can just say append. Actually, it would be a proper message. So I can say append and then send it the trendsetter. So I'm just gonna call it T. Okay. So now we're just adding the trendsetter object to the list. All right. Now that's pretty much the end of this loop, and should be the end of the function as well. But it might be useful if we indicate what is it that we're returning. So maybe I can just call this sitters, YouTube sitters, YouTubers, whatever name I want. So this is the YouTube trendsetters. Okay, now I want to indicate that we are returning these from here. So this was, you see, this is the frame of the caller function. So now this is the end of the find popular of YouTube. So it might be useful. We didn't put any return messages because it wasn't really needed. Now we may need to say at here. Okay, so return. Okay, so YouTube trend. All right. And this loop will keep going until we are done with all the trendsetters that we have. Okay, this was already a loop. So that would happen. All these functionalities will keep happening for every topic. Yes. If it's something like a dictionary dealing with the things that are standard to the language, then it should be okay. But if it's something that is not that obvious, so like the TA would need to understand it, then try to make it clear. And if anything, if something that you're not able to indicate with the notations of the diagram and you really need to add it, you can always add a note. So remember this note that we had in the activity diagram. So if there's more information that you need to add, you can just add a note and then say extra information. Okay. All right, so that is an example. I had an attempt to approach the details of the call, but I found like it was gonna be really, really cluttery. Like we see, if you look at the diagram itself, Now, the more information you put on the diagram, the harder it becomes to read, right? And that defeats the purpose of the communication. So we don't want to add a clutter if it's not necessary. Okay, so if you want to add the details and the interactions of the YouTube data, the resource or the YouTube resource itself by calling the search and the list, you can. But if it's not really necessary, because this is code that we get from Google, okay, we need to understand it, but it doesn't really need to be on the diagram. It doesn't need to be communicated that in that detail. Okay. You don't have to agree with me. If you feel like this, adding this level of detail would be useful for you, feel free to do it. Yes. Yeah, at least one, yeah. So use for one function, yeah. Yes, just one function, one major function, and create sequence diagram. Yes. Okay, any questions? Well, don't worry about it. It might seem confusing because you didn't practice it, but it becomes easy with practice. And with the fact that you need to understand that you're flexible, okay? It's not a standard. You don't have to go a certain route, okay? Just try something and then see how does it feel with the other team members when they look at it, and then adjust it and then keep going. It gets easier. Yes. Yes. Functionality. Yeah. And one activity diagram for the entire process. Is that okay? It's not difficult. It might be new to you, but it's not difficult. You will be able to do it. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so that's all what we have today. Thank you.